Democracy is dying across the world, even including the United States of America. It is dying not only because of the despots, military rulers, authoritarians, populists, but also by elected demagogues. Benito Mussolini, Adolf Hitler, Gettilio, Alberto Fujimori, Hugo Chavez, Viktor Orban came into power in their respective countries as a stir and as a means of stabilizing peace and law and order. Unfortunately, they eroded democracy. On the night of election, they become the antibiotic. A women supporter of Chavez shouted in this way, "Democracy is infected and Chavez is the only antibiotic that we have." In every democracy, there are some neutral referees. And these are judicial system, law enforcement bodies, intelligence agencies, tax and regulatory authorities. According to Baron de Montesquieu, they are created and designed to serve as neutral arbitrators. They are the referees for the rules of the game for democracy. Very sadly, demagogues, despots, autocrats, and authoritarians may be elected and non-elected politicians initially tried to keep these referees in their grip, in their hands, across the countries where democracy is decaying. Popular means of capturing all these referees by firing or by hiring loyalists, by buying them off or by bribing them through undue channels. Stephen Levitsky and Daniel Ziblatt come up with lots of examples from Europe and Americas and from other parts of the world as a part of research, lectures and teachings, and brilliantly codified in their best-selling book, How Democracies Die, What History Reveals About Our Future. Prime Minister Viktor Orban of Hungary controlled the nominally independent prosecution service. Moreover, the State Audit Office, Ombudsman Office, Constitutional Court with the partisan allies in 2010. Alberto Fujimori of Peru, in fact, totally hijacked the intelligence office by intelligence advisor Vladimiro Montesinos. Hugo Chavez, on the other hand, dissolved the total Supreme Court and replaced by a new Supreme Tribunal of Justice. Secondly, these demagogues silence, weaken, or buy the opposition political leaders, potential leaders, media, businesses, cultural figures, and of course the influential voices. The Fujimori government lined off, in fact, all media outlets and channels by bribing or buying through intelligence agencies. We found in Malaysia, by using politically loyal police force, imprison opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim. In Venezuela, opposition leader Leopoldo Lopez was arrested. In Turkey, powerful media Dogan Yanin and their widely read newspaper Hurriyet was fined 2.5 billion US dollar. In Russia, independent NTV television network was charged with financial misappropriation, and therefore the NTV CEO fled the country. Sometimes democracy dies in defense of democracy by the would-be elected autocrats using the issue of economic crisis, natural disasters, security threats such as wars, armed insurgencies, or terrorist attack to justify their anti-democratic measures. Levitsky and Ziblatt put forward another question to us. The big question: can even best constitutions enough to secure a democracy? A good constitution is required, but it is not everything. Here again, they showed us some example. Germany's 1919 Weimar Constitution and the rule of law was composed by the greatest legal minds of that time. But all this collapsed by one single person, Adolf Hitler. On the other hand, Latin America's constitutions are nearly copied and designed with US Republican model with presidential form, bicameral legislatures, supreme courts, federal systems, and even electoral college in some places. And yet, most of the regions are dived into dictatorship and civil wars. Meanwhile, it is not only the good election, not only the well-designed constitution. Functional democracies survive with two most important fundamental issues. Number one is mutual tolerance, and number two is institutional forbearance, along with informal rules, unwritten rules, customs, and shared code of conduct. These are not seen, they are not written, but they are like oxygen or clean water for functional democracy. How democracies die. The authors offered some historical examples for mutual tolerance and institutional forbearance. Mutual tolerance echoed with Voltaire quote, "I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say." It is the politicians' collective willingness to agree to disagree. Opposing parties are rivals, not enemies. They argue and they counter-argue on policies, on manifestos, on many issues, but not on the persons. And this is very critical for the foundation of any democracy anywhere in the world. The Crown can select anyone as British Prime Minister as a royal prerogative. For centuries, we have witnessed the head of the largest political parties becoming the Prime Minister without any written constitutional rule, without any challenge, and of course without any confusion. In the United States, two-term presidential norm is another example. It was not written in anywhere from 1797 to 1951. Informal rule of institution, this is one of the example of informal rule of institutional forbearance. However, President Roosevelt tried to destroy this unwritten rule by seeking a third time in office. But fortunately, it was rejected by both parties, and after his death, a bipartisan coalition in Congress passed the 22nd Amendment for two-term presidency. Moreover, President Nixon tried to violate unwritten democratic norm with widespread wiretapping in Democratic National Committee office in Watergate and against the norms of mutual tolerance. Due to bipartisan cooperation, the courts, the Congress checked the abuse of presidential power, and Nixon resigned. Political parties are basically the gatekeepers of democracy. And political parties mutually disallow the anti-democratic elements or anti-democratic persons in democracies. Bipartisan coalition of political parties, the courts, the Congress, and society as a whole are the gatekeepers of democracy, and they mutually establish guardrails from decaying the long-cherished democracy. Otherwise, partisan warfare, unyielding intolerance, as if the oppositions are enemies, not rivals anymore, kind of sequel of death spiral, destroyed democracies in Europe in 1930s and in Latin America in 1960s and 1970s, and presently in many parts of the world. American democracy is definitely not far away from such challenges. It is decaying due to deeply polarization on race and religion. Republicans are evangelical Christians, opposition to abortion, opposition to gay marriage. On the other hand, Democrats are secular, supported by non-whites, immigrants. In 1950s, non-whites constituted barely 10% of the US population. By 2014, it became 38%, and non-whites will be majority by 2044 as it is projected. Levitsky and Ziblatt discussed mainly on the decay of American democracy in their book, particularly on the rise of Donald Trump as a demagogue. After the Civil War, the Republicans and Democrats basically learned to live together. Unfortunately, the pitfall started since the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. The long cherished partisan mutual tolerance and forbearance of United States of America has been decaying, and issues of political debates are transforming from dreams, policies, tax to race, religion, and some tiny issues. To sum up, how democracies die urges for restoring basic norms for our shared purpose. Democracy is a shared enterprise. No single political leader can destroy, or no single political leader can rescue it. Its fate depends on the citizens of the United States and above all, on all of us. Thank you.